Hi everyone, it's Majorie here from the Punk Priestess, and welcome to August 2025. We're going to talk all about the astrology and tarot of the month, and let's just kind of dive right into it. So, I'm doing something a little bit new here. I subscribe to Luna Astrology. It's a great website for charts, and it's just very clean, and I like the aesthetic of the site. So, if you want to, join in for yourself looking at charts, this is a great website to have, and it's also affordable. But we're gonna look at some transit charts here, and I just feel like there's so much going on every day. It's just even been like more wild. Like, I mean, 2025 has been a very amplified year with the planets and just, so much going on all the time in many different areas of our life. But also, too, I think it kind of has taken it up a notch now that Uranus is in Gemini. And go on my Substack. There is a new post on Gemini and Uranus to kind of help guide you throughout the next 7 years, as well as a tarot spread that I created. So this is going to be really beneficial for you to kind of get some guidance. And over the next couple years, as we kind of see the effects of Uranus and Gemini, I'll add more posts to kind of what's going on with this transit. But it's only been 2 weeks really since Uranus has been in Gemini, and it just feels like such a wild change. I call Uranus the wild child of the planets in astrology, and you can just definitely feel just this influx of energy. So I just kind of want to go over some of the main transits here. And I do have on my Substack post, you can see like all the transits for the month, the main and the mundane ones. So just always make sure you're subscribing to my Substack to get the full tea of what's going on for the month, as well as pictures of the cards I'm going to be pulling in a little bit. So what we have going on, I'm just kind of like jumping ahead to August 6th because we have Mars entering Libra. So it's been 2 years since Mars has been in Libra. So if you have your Mars in Libra, you're going through your Mars return. And this is going to really be about relationships. And also, to kind of what's going on around this time as well. We have Mars trining. Uranus coming up. We also have Mars opposing Saturn retrograde in Aries. So there's definitely like a lot going on that is going to influence, just relationships in general. We're going to see this happening collectively. Like we've already seen what's kind of going on with like the Epstein files and Trump and how that administration is handling that and the collective and there's just a lot going on with like alliances and relationships. And this is something that is not only very much like Mars and Libra coded, but it's also influencing the planets and other air signs like Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius. So that is something that we're going to really kind of see take effect in August. I think it's just a lot of instability with relationships, a lot of like warring with relationships. So it can be like very combative energy. We'll just kind of see maybe more polarization online, people fighting or, getting in feuds. So disagreements and just kind of see like the vitality as well of the relationships in your life too. Like, are you arguing more? Are you feeling like a little bit more defensive? Do you feel like you have to, fight for certain relationships and certain people? Or maybe you're kind of wondering, do I still want to maintain these relationships? Is it still worth the fight? Is it still worth, me kind of, pouring my heart into this connection? And, some people are going to want to engage. And I think that's going to be something too that we're going to be seeing with the opposition with Mars opposing Saturn retrograde in Aries at 1 degrees and 50 minutes on the 8th. Like I think the 8th is going to be kind of a really volatile day. This is the 7th. I'm just turning it to the to 8th here. So we have so much going on in Aries right now. Saturn's retrograde in Aries, Neptune, as well as Chiron. So this is all going to really be influencing the relationships in our lives and making sure that we stand up for ourselves, we can be ourselves. And either we're going to fight or we're going to just be like, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth disrupting my peace to engage. So, and a lot of I think the issues are going to be very much like felt in the moment. Especially with Aries energy, it's very reactive. It doesn't really think things through and strategize. It's more so just like an attack mode. And we're going to be seeing that personally in our lives as well as collectively, we're going to be feeling like a little bit more on edge or just like we want to just act and, have a reaction to something when really we should take a step back and think it through. But Mercury is, retrograde still at this time. So, I think there's going to be a lot of like ill-directed arguments and feuds happening personally in our lives and collectively. And, that's something too, like as an Aries myself, I have to reflect on, I could fight all day, it's the warrior-esque energy. I can fight, I can try to advocate for things, I can try to push for change, but also sometimes that can work against you. And there have been things that I've been wanting to kind of engage in, but then I'm like, you know what, let me take a beat, let me like think it through. Um, Not be reactionary and let things pass and see what happens after the Mercury retrograde. And I think that's kind of like a smart move because you also have to remember Mercury is in Leo. So we have, just more fire sign energy, and it is trining all of this Aries energy with Neptune and Saturn. So just, be mindful of what you're deciding to put your efforts towards. Um, when we come into the ninth, we have the full moon in Aquarius. And this is going to be at 17 degrees. Let's see here. It's a little off because I just put standard 12 p.m. here. But we do have the full moon in Aquarius at 17 degrees exactly. So I will be doing a full lunar report on this moon phase. I didn't do my Leo one. It's just been kind of crazy the past couple weeks. I just got married a couple weeks ago, and I'm about to go on my honeymoon, and then I have like double vacation. So I'm going to be on vacation for almost 3 weeks. So it's just been kind of a lot. So I did miss my lunar post on my Substack uh, last month in July, but moving forward, I will be posting about this Aquarius full moon because I do think it's really important with what's going on the next couple years with the eclipses moving into Aquarius and Leo. So we're kind of getting a little bit of a test, a little bit of a taste of what's going to kind of come through in our lives once the eclipses start moving into Aquarius and Leo, especially in 2027. So I think this is going to be a moment where a lot of us are going to be reflecting back on the next couple years of like what was happening in August of 2025. I think especially too the moon is very comfortable in 17 degrees of Aquarius. So it's very much in the middle of the sign. And, this could also just be reflecting the communities that you're in, reflecting the friendships that you're in. I think there's going to be a lot of this Mars energy with Libra, that is really kind of showing us, who our people are. And, who we can have creative collaboration with, who we can speak to, who can we share ideas with. There's a lot of air and fire energy, and that's really going to be taking precedence the next, decade and a half, 2 decades. So I think this is kind of a good little taste test of, having this mindfulness in these areas, in these signs, in these planets, and seeing how it propels us forward into the future. Um, Also, too, we have on the 11th, we have Mercury finally going direct again. So that is going to be direct in Leo at 4 degrees. So, here we are. And I think this is, it's going to take some time with the shadow period to get adjusted. We also have Saturn sextiling Uranus on this day as well. So I hope you can see my pointer here, but here's Saturn at 1 degrees of Aries, and then we have Uranus here. I mean, I'm sorry, that's Pluto. We have Uranus here at 1 degrees. So I think that's really interesting. And we also too, yeah, have this going on as well with Neptune. So, there's just a lot of, I think, positive influence too, especially like not engaging forthright, just being like, okay, this is what's, been going on. This is how I've been able to like, hold my tongue and see how that can actually benefit, relationships or maybe thinking things through instead of being reactionary. So I think there's going to be a lot of that, taking the opposite approach. And that might be kind of a helpful lesson with all of this Aries energy retrograde. It's just like take a beat. Um, and then that can actually give you some positive results. So, so yeah, that's going to be, coming through. Um, we also too, moving on to the 12th here. This is a minor aspect. But we do have Venus conjunct Jupiter, and that's going to be in Cancer. So, right here at 14 degrees. Um, and I think this is a very positive, abundant aspect pattern. I think like this is going to be a great moment of feeling very comforted with where our heart is, feeling, if we're doing like arts and crafts, if we're, creating beauty and bringing beauty out into the world, I think this is a very positive sign of like, yes, like you're on the right frequency. You're doing something intentional with your time and with your heart, and you're going to be seeing expansion in that area. So I think it's going to be a very lovely time with these planets next to each other and, just feeling, very joyous, feeling very abundant, but also, these are very lazy planets. So it might not really be a time where you're really wanting to push and engage. And I think that's also just part of the lesson of August is just like don't overreact to things. Like let's move in peace and maybe sometimes less is more. And that's kind of what we have to work through. Um, let's see here. There's a lot of more mundane transits kind of going on throughout the week. There's a lot of sextiles, like Mars sextiling Mercury, Venus trining the North Node, Mercury sextiling Mars. I'm going to jump ahead to the 22nd here. Let's see. And actually, I'm just going to go one more day to the 23rd so we can get Virgo season to start. So Virgo season is starting. It's really going to be on the 22nd, but I don't feel like adjusting my time to try to get the exact degree of zero for Virgo. But Virgo season is going to be starting on the 22nd. So happy birthday to all my Virgos. We're going to start getting more Earth energy in here as well. And then well, on this day too, we had the new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. So it's a little bit ahead here, but the moon and the sun will be conjunct, which isn't uncommon. But definitely too, yeah, I think with this new moon in Virgo, we have another one coming up that's going to be yeah, an eclipse. So I think this is like very vital for us to just really kind of see what we want to bring into the fall. Virgo is very much back to school energy, and I think this is definitely kind of gearing us up towards that. So there's a lot of shift and change. Like there's a little bit more seriousness. There's a little bit more of like, okay, let's refine things. Let's make sure we, um, strategize a little bit. So there is going to be this a little bit of this pressure here to get things together, get things under control, and kind of be a little bit more towards the book towards the end of August. Also, too, like look at kind of our asteroids here. We have Lilith, we have Juno, we have Vesta, all conjunct here in Scorpio. So I think this is too like a lot of premeditation. We'll kind of see what's happening collectively. Um, I think as well, it's like making sure that we utilize our passions in the right way, whether it be in relationship, whether that be with like our duties, our task, like what we're trying to protect and advocate for, as well as making sure that we're not just like holding ourselves back from what we want to engage in and what we want. And then the last major transit I'm going to talk about is um, Venus going into Leo, which should be the 25th, but I might push the chart a little bit. Yeah, we're at 29 degrees there. Let's just go. Yep, there we go. So, the next day, We do have Venus in Leo. So, I think this is again, like there's a big focus here on where we're directing our energy, if we're putting it in the right creative spaces, if we're advocating for our self-expression and pushing our best self forward and not being, fearful of our individuality, not being fearful of our talents and abilities, as well as making sure too, like, we're in cahoots with the right relationships, the right people. That's going to be something as well. We're going to be seeing with the trine with Venus and Neptune on the 26th. Like this is going to be just, a lot of a harmonious energy, a lot of fated connections, even spiritual too, like making sure that, you're on the right spiritual path with people. So yeah, I think that is a very beautiful energy that we're going to kind of see transcend. And, hopefully this can utilize a lot of creative passion in people, bring in a lot of creative passion in people and people's relationships. So, there's more mundane aspects, but I feel for right now, this is kind of the gist of the energy of August, and I think it is just very relationship focused. And I think like there's a need for harmony, there's a need for collaboration and connection, and the main part though is that we don't want to compromise our truth to show up in community, to show up in relationship. And I think this is a lesson we're going to learn, and also to not bring drama to relationships or be mindful of how you engage and what you engage in and if it's worth your peace. Um, and politically, collectively, we're going to see a lot of like shift with alliances and people that maybe once were friends or not friends, or this feud, or maybe this new relationship, this new celebrity relationship just got launched. I think there is going to be a lot of that, coming through. So, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Okay. So let's pull some tarot cards and some oracle cards here. All right. So let's see. I don't know if I really have any new decks that I'm using. I kind of just been like staying true and blue to my favorites. But we're gonna start with a main energy just to get a vibe of what's gonna go down in August. I will have all the decks listed and a picture of the cards on my Substack for this post. So make sure again you're subscribing, supporting your girl. If you feel called to be a paid subscriber, it's only $6 a month, and that helps me kind of keep going with my writing. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so what I have here is the eight of, let's see, there, it's clear. The eight of Pentacles upright, and then I have empathy. So, I really do think we have to make sure I mean, some people have to work to have empathy, but I do think this is making sure like what we put our time and energy behind, there is empathy included in that. And it's just a lot about like purposeful action. That is, purposeful relationships, purposeful directing of our energy. And I think definitely with the eight here of Pentacles, we want to make sure that we're putting our heart towards the right things, towards the right people, and we don't mind laboring for the things that we love. But I do think we all need to collectively work on empathy. I mean, empathy is a dirty word for some people, but I think that it should just come naturally as a human, but a lot of people have lost their empathy, and we need to get back to this. And I think a lot of people need to work towards having more empathy in their life, not only for others, but for themselves. And that's something too that I've noticed, people aren't going to be kind to you because they're not kind to themselves. And I do think that there's a lot of healing that people need. And we could, try together to build each other up. And that's where the empathy comes from. And I think this is where we're going to see a lot of collective change, like more empathy coming through. And we're all going to have to work on it together if we want to raise the vibration and frequency of this world. So, powerful start there. All right. So got some heavy hitters coming in. I'll show you what I have and then we'll talk about them. So I have the Seven of Pentacles upright. I have the Sun upright, and then I have the moon upright. So definitely some duality coming in of the sun and the moon. But let's talk about the Seven of Pentacles first. So we have the seven, we also have the eight coming in. And with the seven, this is one of my favorite cards. It just really is a great confirmation that you're on the right track and you've, done a lot of hard work. You've put a lot of time and energy behind the right actions, the right things. Like you've done the work and you're going to see results. You're going to see some payoff in some way, shape, and form. But it takes a little bit of time to push that out, but I do think that you've been able to plant the right seeds. So, think about this in your life, like, where have you really been putting your heart on your sleeve, or really have you been doing the work, and where are the results coming from? And a lot of times too, when this card comes in, I always say, like, be careful what you wish for because you might as well get it when it comes to the labor that you've been able to partake in the past, because you're going to get that back. And sometimes it can be a very busy, hectic energy with the Seven of Pentacles. And I feel that, maybe there's a little bit of foreshadowing here with the eight, kind of saying, your hard work is going to pay off. And, you have a lot of ideas, you have a lot of experience, but prepare for it to actually start taking shape and you have to mold it, you have to maintain it, and you have to continue the labor of what has resulted from the Seven of Pentacles. So, I think this is, personally for ourselves, just looking at where we're having a lot of growth and benefit. Maybe it's financially, maybe it's professionally, maybe it's with certain projects, or it is, a lot of the physical components in our life taking shape and taking off and growing and being more abundant, but with that, we have to maintain it. I do think, the sun is a very positive card. Like there's a lot of optimism, maybe there's a lot that's illuminated to you at this time where you're seeing clearly now. Sometimes it happens with Mercury retrograde. We need planets to go retrograde so that we can see a different perspective of life and bring projects back from the past and parts of ourselves from the past. I do think with the sun card coming in, it's a good indication that, there is a lot of like obvious things in the forefront of your mind that you are working towards and you are feeling very passionate about and feel intentional about. So I think that's really good. And I kind of feel like this is an encouragement of like saying like, keep going, like stay in the moment. Like Leo is a zodiac sign that is very much in the moment. It's not going to think, too much about the future, and it's not worried about the past. It just wants to continue to go and to kind of chase the rays of the sun. And, we only have so many hours of, sunlight a day, and then it becomes night and we have the moon. And there's a little bit of, insecurity sometimes with the moon because especially like if you are a Leo or have a lot of Leo in your chart or fire sign energy, you feel like very much connected to the sun and the light. It's your guiding force. But when the moon comes in, it gets a little murky. Um, and water signs do a little bit better with the mystery. And this is kind of saying you have to balance the duality of inside of yourself. You have to keep going and stay optimistic and trust your ideas, but also know that we can't predict the future. We don't know how something is going to go. We can only focus on it during the day when we have that clarity. And then at night, or when we feel in our lives, like, we don't really know if where we're fully going, we still have to trust ourselves with our intuition. We have to kind of take action in the moment, but also trust your intuition when the lights go off. And I think on like kind of a more general scale, see how this relates to money too. Some of this could be like, am I, putting my resources towards the right things? And maybe, you have a lot of illumination and then all of a sudden it gets dark. It's like, wait, should I have invested in that? Should I have spent money on that? What if the tariffs come in? What if this happens? Like, there's a lot of what ifs, and the moon is like, just trust. Just trust what you were working on and the decisions that you made during the day. Trust what you're working on and working through. Hard work does pay off. And, if you have an idea for something, like your destiny is bigger than, politics. Your destiny is bigger than money. Money will come and go, but your time on earth is unreplaceable. Like you only have one life. So don't be afraid to go after what you want and continue to maintain that confidence and that optimism. And when you feel a little bit uncertain or insecure, your intuition has to really push you through. And this is where you also have to start paying attention to divine messages. You need to look for signs. You need to have an altar with your ancestors' pictures to help guide you in times when you feel like you can't guide yourself. And that is very much, I feel, the vibe for, what's to come creatively for ourselves, not only in August, but moving forward throughout the next kind of like turbulent years that we have coming up. Um, let's pull on more cards here. Because I have a lot of clients that, they tell me, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know if it's the right time, or, but is this going to be financially successful? Or, I feel like I found my rhythm and then I lost it. And now I'm conflicted of like where to move forward. And that's just kind of like, the energy that I just talked about. That's kind of where you have to trust your path, even when the lights are off. And you have to use your sixth sense. You have to use your vision to pull you through. And, that's why I think it's important to stay connected to the moon. I think it's important to look at the Sabian symbols for each moon phase every month, especially the new and full moons and the eclipses. And this might kind of be preparing us for the eclipses too. It's like the work that we partake in Leo season will kind of open up some new portals for us when we move into our next eclipse season in September. Um, a lot of heavy hitters in this spread. So I have the world upright, and then I have the moon reversed. So I'm pulling the moon twice in its duality, upright and reversed. And I think this is it's interesting too with the moon card. There's two full moons here. So let's see what happens. Maybe it is with the Aquarius full moon this month. That's maybe hinting at something to come, and how we're really going to have to just be more in tuned with the mysteries of life and our clairvoyant abilities, as well as maybe something more divinatory, esoteric. Like we really need to feel more comfortable in not knowing everything and not having everything like in our face all the time. Sometimes we just know things and we just have to move on. We can't wait and wait and wait for confirmation all the time. Sometimes we want the dramatization, the Hollywood ending of like drastic closure, and it's just very obvious. But a lot of times life does not work that way. It's very mysterious. And if there is something that you need to wrap up and give closure to, this can be something physically, this can be something internally, emotionally, whatever it may be. I think this is a good sign with Saturn, which rules the world, Saturn retrograde in Aries before it moves in back into Pisces on September 1st. I think this is kind of saying like finalize and clear up any loose ends in August. The Mercury retrograde will help you. We have a lot of retrogrades, like things will help you make some progress, but maybe what you need to finalize and let go of. And maybe it's something internal, maybe it's emotionally, and maybe there's a mystery of how to do that or what that is. But hopefully you find it next month, or hopefully you find it this month, and you can do the intentional work behind it. I think too, with this empathy card, just giving yourself empathy, giving others empathy for what they're trying to finalize and work through in their lives. We're all on our own unique path and journey. And we're all running our own race, which is another reason why maybe the astrology is like, don't be overly critical, don't be overly um, engaging and argumentative because people are going through their own things and they're trying to wrap up their own layers of inside of themselves. And also externally too. There's like both the internal and the external worlds that are kind of colliding here. But I do think this is kind of saying, having more compassion, empathy, and grace for people and yourself for what you are maintaining in your world and what you are either accomplishing, what you are, finding some resolution in, and what you're ending so that you can move on. And some days you're going to feel like you know what that is. You're going to feel like, all right, I'm on the money with what I'm supposed to, focus on in my world and, what I need to push forward on or like, revolve and resolve and work against. But I think too, sometimes we're going to be faced with this and this is part of the retrogrades this month, we're going to be feeling like, can we trust ourselves? Can we trust the divine? Are we moving in the right direction? There's a little bit of insecurity, but we just have to go back to um, knowing if we do the right work, it won't fail us. And it's a little bit of Capricorn energy with some of these with the Seven of Coins and the Eight of Pentacles. Like it's very earthy, maybe it's a little bit Virgo kind of mixed in with August. It's just like, doing the work, not cutting corners, not cheating, not bribing, doing the real work, and you will get the real results. And you can close chapters, you can close things up in your life, finalize things, feel right by yourself so that you can move on. Let's see. I'm gonna pull a couple more cards here. Right. And yeah, I'm gonna pull a color oracle card to end. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna read these two first and then I'm gonna pull that card. So what I have here is the Knight of Swords upright, and then I have the King of Cups reversed. So, I was kind of talking about relationships with the astrology and, gender inclusive, making sure that we we really think about the relationships and see them for what they are and remove our ego, other people's ego, that's where the empathy can kind of come in. And I think too it's just, yeah, really taking stock of the people in your life and who you want to engage with mentally, thinking about who are the first people you call or you talk to, you text when something goes well in your life, and then who are the people that you talk to and engage with when things aren't going so well? Are they the same people? Are they different? I think too, this is something I was reflecting on today. I was like, wow, like, you know, even just 5 years ago, we were just more engaged with our relationships. Even for myself, I've just noticed like I've become like a bad texter. Like I am not really on my phone as much. And I used to like call friends all the time. And, I feel like I call family like quite a bit, like almost every day I'm talking to family. But when it comes to friends, it's interesting. It's more so just like texting now, when it used to be both, or it used to be more so like I would always like call this friend. And I'm like, we kind of need to get back to that. And maybe that's something that we'll kind of do when Uranus really starts moving into Gemini. Maybe we kind of go back to a little bit of just picking up the phone and talking instead of just texting about things. But I do think the Knight of Swords, it really wants to engage. It wants to share ideas. It wants to put themselves out there and kind of just seeing what sticks, like throwing it to the wall and seeing what sticks. And I think you want to make sure you feel safe, not only within yourself but with the people around you, to really push that idea, that momentum forward. And maybe we need to contemplate on how we are engaging with technology, how we are engaging with the people in our lives and with ourselves. And maybe we need to, speak some truth to things, but also we need to know when we need to hold, back and bite our tongue a little bit. And that can be with the Knight of Swords here, as well as, really thinking about the relationships who can really comprehend what it is that you have to say. If you have to have a serious conversation or you have to, um, try to resolve some type of conflict, making sure that you do so out of love, not so just out of like spite or just spitting out words. Like you really want to make sure it hits their heart center. And if you feel like certain people aren't up for the challenge to be authentic, to, wear their heart on their sleeves and to really, engage with you in an empathic way, then maybe you have to contemplate, if these relationships or our relationship is still worth it for you in August. And if you want to walk through this shared portal together as we move into eclipse season, or if this is kind of saying maybe, certain relationships have to end. Maybe you have to kind of say, hey, this is how I feel, and I don't want to move forward. I don't want to move on. But you need to know like your place. Like, you need to know who you want to engage with and who you don't want to engage with. I was also thinking this too today, because like I don't know. I feel like I've been thinking a lot about people and connections and relationships and the shift and who's really like my ride or die, who, like everyone has their place. You have to really compartmentalize the relationships in your life. And maybe this is just like a Capricorn moon type of emotional thing that I have that I do in my life where everyone kind of has like their place. But I was just thinking, I'm like, most of my friends are all cardinal signs. Like most of my friends are Aries and Libras, Capricorns, and Cancers. Like those are all basically my friends as well as like family. And I like realized I'm like, I don't really mess with mutable energy. I don't have a lot of mutable sign friends. I never really have. And I think, just kind of even seeing like I have like a lot of cardinal in my chart. I'm mostly all cardinal. So it's no surprise that as a very cardinal dominant person that most of my relationships are all cardinal relationships, but you kind of have to also see in your chart like the type of people you engage with naturally. And even some new friends I've been making, they're like all Libras. And I'm like, yeah, like come bring the Libras to me. Like, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. But I was just thinking about that today, like who really I feel like I can trust. And I was like, I really like can really only feel trustworthy around cardinal energy. And most of my friends that I feel I can trust the most are Aries. So, like myself. So it's just really interesting. I like coming to that kind of connection today for myself. Like I've always known it, but it was just really putting like the words together of like, wow, like that makes sense. Those patterns make sense. But I think for you, like really kind of reflect on those relationships. Like who like do you really engage with? Who's your ride or die? Who are the connections that you like want to fight for, you want to build and maintain, and which are the ones that you might have to contemplate, like, is it still worth it? Um, are you in the dark about certain relationships? Are you unsure of how the future goes with certain relationships? Like you don't want to just do unnecessary labor. Um, and I also think, which ones you can really trust your visions with. And that's just one thing I also have been reflecting on because there's a lot of creative projects I'm working on behind the scenes that I haven't like told really anyone about. But the only people I've really told about them about are all my cardinal besties. And they're the only ones I really can kind of trust to help kind of support me at this time. Cause I don't know, like sometimes mutable energy, it's a little shaky. It's a little shaky. So I just kind of have like noticed that too of like who I'm actually like opening up to creatively and see that for yourself. Who are you opening up creatively to? What friends, which people, what family, and who are you kind of distancing yourself from? Who can you trust? All right, so I'm gonna pull one last card here, and this is gonna be a color oracle card. So let's see the color for August. And what we have here is crimson. Beautiful. All right. I'm just going to read a little bit about it. This is from Color Vision Oracle. This is Moon Nectar Apothecary. This is like one of my favorite decks of all time. So definitely purchase it, supports small businesses. Let's see if I can find this color. Oops, I just passed it. There we go. All right, so crimson. I'll hold it up as I talk about it. So this is deep, this is what I was talking about with the astrology. Deep-seated anger, aggression, predator-prey dynamic, a violent temper, bullying or lashing out at others, defending oneself, desperation, shameful feelings, guilt, fear, imprisonment of mind, karma. So, and I was saying at the astrology, it was like really be careful of what you engage in and people like I was saying, changing of allegiance. I mean, we have a lot going on with the whole Epstein thing and the South Park thing that just came out last month. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on. So there's a lot of collective anger, but also too like there is like a need to release this anger. And that's where maybe some of this empathy has to come in. It's like, should I engage and be angry or do I need to have empathy? Um, we need to like channel the anger into energy to allow it to move through us. Anger can be healthy, especially for women. We need to release anger and tension because if not, it shows up in as ailments in our body. Like anger gets stored in the body, so we have to release it and have the energy move through us. We have to watch out for, people harming us harming others. And that's where we need to really make sure we're engaging in the right relational dynamics. A lot of this can be like shame and fear, repressed trauma, feeling victimized and recognizing trauma too. It's a little bit of a darker nod to what's going on astrologically and what I was kind of touching on, but also here, like who are the people who are going to show up and hold space for you as you're trying to process and go through some harder things, or maybe you're just straight up angry and maybe you need to release that and not hold it back. Um, so Mars, the planet of war, like we talked about, Mars is, going to be in Libra. So we're going to be seeing a lot of, conflict and feuds and, with people as well, just thinking about the Epstein list, client list, and all those women who have spoken up and said things like, "Hey, this person's a predator. This person's this," and people like not believing them, but like people were starting to be like, "Yeah," like I mean, we all knew, but some people it's just taking them a little bit longer to wake up. But I do think we're gonna be seeing more violence and aggression. And it's going to be collectively, politically as well as personally in our lives too. But it's just we have to understand like, is it worth the fight? Is it worth, um, especially with all these retrogrades coming in. This is the root chakra, and then some crystals to kind of work with are like red jasper, aragonite. Um, but yeah, we need to really make sure that we don't engage with people who are like all about conflict. Sometimes, the lion just wants to roar and to fight and be aggressive with Leo in, August, and other times it's like we just need to not poke the bear. We don't need to poke the lion. And we need to watch out the anger within inside of ourselves too, and know when we're utilizing it in a healthy way, in a healthy direction, and when we need to kind of dial it back. But I think like just be very purposeful about conflict in August and if it's worth it, or if you would rather use that fuel, use that passion towards what you're building with, your projects, your work, like, making sure like it goes somewhere where you can actually hold on to it and see some physical results. And maybe, before engaging or if someone's making you angry or crazy, just kind of hold empathy for them and be like, you know what, there's a lot of unhealed trauma they're working through. Or, I can try to hold space for them, but maybe I need to protect my peace and not engage in that type of energy. So, yeah, I think, I like hopefully that, that I'm spinning the web and it kind of makes sense here, but I think that is the energy of August and thinking about what kind of world do you want to live in and also what world do you want to get out of or other people's worlds that you don't no longer want to exist in. You are in charge of your destiny here. Um, so that is the forecast for August 2025. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this resonates with you and kind of see how this trickles down into your month. And if you want to look at pictures of the spreads and all the charts and everything, make sure you subscribe to my Substack, which is going to be linked in the show notes. And if you want a personal reading with me, I will be back doing personal readings. I'm taking a little summer break because I'm going on multiple vacations starting next week. So I will be back mid-August. So make sure that you book with me. And I am so excited to read for you one-on-one if you decide to do that. And thank you so much for subscribing, for watching, supporting, and I will see you next month.